Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started here in just a moment. Thank you for coming on to the call. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit with our guest expert today, Dr. Mark Freeman. Hello, Mark.
Hi. Hi, Anissa.
So
Glad
nice
to be here.
So nice to have you. Today we're going to be talking about leading others with a cool head and a warm heart, becoming conflict capable. Very timely subject, my friend.
Absolutely. I think everyone's going to really enjoy the practicality of how to use these skills that we're going to talk about today immediately for success.
Good. That's what we're all wanting to take away is give me something to keep me sane while I'm cooped up with my honey all day. I know, what, laughing like that's a big challenge. What?
Exactly. Honey and several little munchkins running around or older munchkins running around.
That's right. That's right. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. Thank you for joining us. My name is Anissa Aven and Dr. Mark Freeman is with us today. This is the Leading in a Crisis virtual summit talk with Dr. Mark Freeman, leading others with a cool head and a warm heart, becoming conflict capable. So I just want to say thank you to our sponsors of our summit. The Whitmarsh Consulting Group, David Whitmarsh and his team over at the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. They provide human resources, information technology consulting, and multi-channel marketing strategy consulting. I just want to say thank you to them because without them, the summit would not be possible. Our other sponsor is SPERAT, HR that makes a difference. SPERAT and the team there, I asked them, what would you be willing to do for a freebie or a giveaway or a gift for our participants? And they thought about it and they said, well, how about a free HR financial analysis report and debrief? And when I asked a little bit more, what exactly did that entail? I learned that this is a pretty big deal. It's an HR budget analysis. It's a confidential report, and it's a one-on-one debrief with one of their experts. And what makes this a super big deal is that will take them anywhere from 3 to 10 hours, depending on your organization. And get this, they know that not everyone is going to be a good fit for them as a client, and yet they're willing to do that. So don't hesitate to take advantage of that. You can learn more at turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. And the HRR in that last little bit there is capitalized. It is case sensitive. So my name is Anissa Aven, and this is my company, TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. We provide enterprise learning and development solutions. We have expert coaches, trainers, OD consultants, and HR information technology consultants around the country in every major metropolitan area in the US and in key hubs globally. And when I won't call it the crash because we had a crash in 2018 that deserved that topic or that title, we'll call this our COVID-19 challenge. When all of that really became apparent that we have organizations that have been our clients for years that may not make it. We have individuals who are sick or worried about their loved ones and unable to be with their loved ones. And when we realized that we needed to step up and model the behavior that we prefer to teach and train and work with our clients on, I reached out to Mark and other experts like Mark and said, what do you think? What can we provide? How can we rally quickly and be there for our clients in a way that is meaningful? And we have over 40 plus speakers and experts in all different disciplines and various expertise that have joined us to help us put on this summit. It's going to be every Wednesday and Thursday throughout April and then into May. And then, of course, the replays will be ongoing and available. But do check back on the site that you're at right now, watching us and watching this live for the replays, and check out the never-ending list, it seems, of new topics. very briefly, I want to share with you guys that we've put together quite a few programs to support organizations. One is our Name Your Own Price Outplacement Services. I consider that to be pretty extraordinary, that if you have a need, that we can match your budget. And we've put together a package that is high touch meets high tech. And yet we're still working with expert career coaches and outplacement specialists. So I am super excited that to get to an opportunity to work with you again, Mark. Mark is the consummate senior organizational development and behavioral consultant. He has, I don't know, 10,000 plus hours in this field. It is his passion. It is his work. He helps individuals. He helps organizations in their performance improvement, in their change management, in their organizational training and development. I think we've talked him into later on in the month coming back and doing a talk on stress management for professionals. So Mark, share with us what we're going to learn today, and thank you for being here.
Okay, well, it seems to be a real interest in the topic. I hear that a lot of people have thought about leading in a conflict with a cool head and a warm heart. So I'd like to jump right into that topic. This is a favorite topic of mine because I really see this as something so essential for success with HR professionals or any professionals in being able to it. So I'd like for you to chat in, if you could, and think about a recent conflict you've had with someone else, and then describe it in a couple of words, and we could see your responses on the chat. That'd be wonderful.
A recent conflict.
Just, go ahead and post it. A couple. Heated and one-sided, we have one person. What else? Anybody else want to chat in?
Yush says underperformance. Larry says
conflict with my husband. Good.
Trying to express my stress levels. I get it. Amy says, can you define conflict as different from a problem?
Yeah, a problem's fine too. I mean, conflict can be a loaded word, but a problem is fine. So what I'm seeing in most of the responses is I haven't seen a positive one yet. I've seen a lot of negative, pejorative, misunderstanding, painful, ugly, stressful, blah, blah, blah. What about opportunity? What about a chance to grow? So this is very important. I want you to be thinking about, how do I change my mindset before I even begin to address conflict? Because if I'm coming in with the notion this is going to be horrible, this is going to make things worse, how in the world can I get my mindset into the framework, this is going to make things better? This is going to help us grow and develop as two people. This is going to help us achieve what we want.
That's a really good point, because even in the question, the first thing that comes to my mind was, think about a recent conflict and then describe it. And so what you're sharing is, whenever I think of a conflict moving forward, the goal is to pivot. And yes, that was a conflict. Yes, I was angry at my honey. And there's an opportunity for us to turn this into something better. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like, oh, great, we have an opportunity to grow. There's a conflict in my life that I can grow and develop now. So I think when you come in with that mindset, it's a whole different outcome than that. Okay, so where are you on a conflict management competency scale between a novice and an expert in your role in working with people who may be crosswise with one another? Where do you think you are? Just go ahead and chat in some responses. Where you think you are on that conflict management competency scale, novice or expert?
Well, Mark, for me personally, while folks are typing it in, while I would consider myself a pretty good expert, I mean, I teach this material. I recognize it when our experts teach it. I've written about it. And yet, during this crisis right now, I'm quite surprised with my old ways of managing conflict raising their ugly head. And I'm like, who is that person? And what have you done with me?
So that's an excellent point, Anissa. And I think what happens under stress and in crisis, we revert to older familiar behaviors, even though we may have grown and doing better with our conflict management over time in less stressful times. But the stress, the crisis, and the anxiety I'm seeing in a lot of my clients is their old behaviors are rearing their heads, and it's hard to stop that pattern. So what we're going to talk about today is how to do pattern interruption. The other thing I want to say about that last slide is that it's one thing when you're an HR professional or a professional when you're working with two people who are in conflict and you don't have a dog in the fight.
Yep.
So you might say, well, when it comes to that, I'm more expert. But when it has to do with me and my honey, I'm not so good at it. So you may have actually two different scales going on here. You're more expert when you can be removed from it emotionally and it's two other people in conflict. And when it's something where you're emotionally charged, you may put yourself closer to the novice scale. So it's kind of a trick question. But I wanted you to separate those two things out really in your mind too, that it's one way to be that way in a professional role, and it's one way to be that way when it involves you personally. So we'll talk about that. Let's go to the, all right. So one of the great books out there is Getting to Yes by Fisher and Urey from Harvard University. And I love this quote: conflict lies not in objective reality, but in people's heads. Truth is simply one more argument, perhaps a good one, perhaps not, for dealing with the difference. One of the stumbling blocks is that we're always searching for truth in the other person, yourself. This is the barometer, when really it's just about perception. We all have heard this so many times: perception is reality, you know. And if you look at the quote down below that I've written, all people create automatic thoughts in their heads that need to be observed and challenged, or they will make things worse instead of better. So automatic thoughts come as a result of you feeling like, okay, I'm being taken advantage here. So what is the narrative I'm going to say about the other person? They're rotten. They're trying to take something from me. And those thoughts are not useful. So part of the cool head, warm heart is challenging those automatic thoughts.
So really, in essence, the differences that we're talking about here is about the differences in our thinking and theirs, not necessarily.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Two different narratives that are coming into crosshairs with one another, but it's not necessarily the truth, because the truth is true for you and your upbringing and your circumstances, true for me from my upbringing and circumstances. The sooner we acknowledge that and declare what our inside narratives are and get those out into the open, the better we're going to be able to get through the experience together.
So in essence, their issue is not the issue. Their way of thinking is not the problem. The way our thinking collides and our reaction to that collision.
And it's when my needs conflict with your needs, then I get in a place where I need to justify myself. And you get in a place where you need to justify myself. If we can name that's going on, a different experience could happen for us. So one of the biggest problems that people fall into is they don't break out conflict in looking at it on two levels. There's the substance of the argument, which most of us jump into solving. We feel some stress, we feel some tension, we feel anxiety. So you go, whoa, let's jump in and talk about it, because we need to talk about it right now and get it over with, because this is too painful, this is too stressful. And that's wrong. So I'm going to tell you that what you need to do is a process that separates the substance of the argument through some steps that you can actually take to be successful. And that's what we're going to learn today. So there's a formula for keeping a cool head and a warm heart that's really a process, has nothing to do with the substance of the argument. So another way to put that is we separate the people problems from the substance of the argument, the thing that we all want to solve and make it go away. And that our perceptions, as we're talking about, automatic thoughts, our emotions to a situation, and how we communicate that. If you go to the substance without dealing with the people issues, you're sunk. I'll just tell you. And that's where most problems come in conflict management. It was we jump to solve the problem instead of coping with the people issues.
So this here is identifying that the people issues are around the triangle, right? So perceptions,
Yeah.
emotions, and communication. And does this mean that we could, in theory, say that all people problems will fall into one of those three categories?
Yes, absolutely. They fall into one of three categories. You have high stakes interest in whatever the substance might be. Am I going to lose something? Am I going to gain something? And so it generates high emotions. So the stakes are high. And because the stakes are high, whatever we're talking about, our emotions go up.
Mm-hmm.
When our emotions go up, we make bad decisions. We don't operate from our sensibilities, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I think you'll see this crystal clear.
And I want to understand the phrase you're using, substance. Tell me how that's defined in this scenario.
The content of the argument, you know, for example, someone coming in late to work.
Yeah.
That content, something that's observable behavior that's been problematic for one person, and it's that performance problem is problematic for the manager, and it's also you don't understand why. So the substance of the argument is the actual behavioral observed things that are happening that we can kind of agree on in that sense. And the people issues are our reading of it, our labeling of the experience, our communicating that pain instead of more the people issues have nothing to do with the substance. So separating those two things out.
Okay. All right. Good. And I know you're going to give us some examples on that.
Yeah.
So hold my question.
So one of the tools that I use that I think is very, very helpful is the TKI, which is the Thomas Kilmann Conflict Styles Indicator. And so it measures 5 conflict modes, okay? And the 2 scales are assertiveness, getting what you want in a situation, in a conflict, and then getting along with others. So both of those need to be leveraged. And everybody, when you take this assessment, you can find it, some versions of it online, but you can also buy it through CPP or Psychologist Press. And you can use this with your team on HR. It's really good as a training tool. We use this all the time. So it takes about 20 minutes to take, and it identifies your 2 default conflict modes and the 2 that are least available to you. So you understand how you operate in conflict. So I highly recommend that tool to help yourself. But for our purposes, your results yields 5 types. And you'll see that on the next slide. So if you have all assertiveness, it's a competing mode. It's about me getting what I want my way or the highway. I like a symbol for that to be a shark, a conflict animal shark. Avoiding is I'm not assertive, I'm not trying to get what I want, and I'm not caring about the relationship and trying to manage it in any way, and that's avoiding. And the conflict animal that fits for that is the turtle, hunkering down. This adage that goes with that is, I'll think about it tomorrow. So with competing, the adage is my way or the highway. So for collaborating, which is high assertiveness, I'm really working hard on trying to get a win-win situation, and I'm trying to be as cooperative as possible, as I possibly can with you, is called collaborating. And that's 2 heads are better than 1. The conflict animal that goes with that is the owl, wise old owl. And then compromising, which is a split between half of me getting what I want, half of you getting what you want. So I'm managing the relationship a little bit, and I'm also making concessions to you. So compromising is the negotiating skill, or the adage for that is let's make a deal. And the conflict animal for that is the fox. And lastly, accommodating is the customer service style of conflict, which is accommodating to whomever your customer is. It's the Disney model of, we were cast in this role and they're hiring for your accommodating skills. So it's the ability in a conflict to be a teddy bear, it would be my pleasure to help you. So those are the 5 styles, and I argue that everybody has a default position in one of those. You have 2 of those you love and 2 of those you hate. So you go to the ones that are easy for you to do. You do the first one, and then you do the second one, and then you quit. My sense of today is that you need to use these 5 in the correct order. So this is what we're going to talk about, how to keep your head cool and your heart warm by using these 5 situationally, not in a random order. So here's the appropriate sequence. First, you avoid. Avoiding has a really negative connotation, but is the most important conflict strategy. And I'll get into that in a minute. Accommodating is the second one you always use. Thirdly, collaborating. Fourthly, compromising if you can't get a collaboration. And last but not least, competing, or my way or the highway. So that you've gone through a sequence and a process that is foolproof.
So I just want to say, if there's anyone else on this call that's looking at your style of conflict, and like me, you're going, wait. You want me to do this in order? Please share that with your chat box, and that'll make me feel like I'm not the only person here that's wondering, how am I supposed to avoid? I'm not really an avoider. So you don't have to answer that right now unless you want to, Mark.
Okay, so I run these in sequence so you understand what I'm talking about. So I think it'll become crystal clear for you. If it isn't in the next 20 minutes, then I've done a poor job of articulating. I think you'll get a sense. If avoiding is not something you want to do, I'm going to convince you how important it is as the first step. Okay?
All right. I like it.
Okay, so I'll think about it tomorrow. Avoiding. You're buying time. You have no power in the situation. You allow others, and there are symptomatic problems. If you use avoiding more than 24 hours, it becomes problematic. However, it's always the first step, because avoiding allows me to keep a cool head and a warm heart. It's the heart of this discussion. If my head is hot and my heart is cool, you're going down. Yeah. And we've all felt that. So your smart move, when you start to feel your face heating up and your heart's beating faster and your hands are shaking a little bit and you feel heat, not the time to talk. Time to break it off. Time to say, excuse me, I've got to take some time. Let's get back to this within an hour or 24 hours. It's always the first best step. You have to. So it avoids what's called in the literature is the sucker's choice. What is the sucker's choice? When you get on your email and you're mad and you write and draft an email that in the old days you would just shoot out to people, but something tells you that you ought to put that in the drafts folder because you're so mad you don't want to do something you're going to regret. If you push send, there's hell to pay between you and the other person. If you don't, and you go back to that email 24 hours later, you go, who was that crazy person who wrote that? I do not feel that way about the other person at all.
Yep.
And you realize, oh my God, I was hijacked. My frontal cortex was gone, and I was operating only out of my limbic system, fight or flight. And if I don't take this step, I will clean it up for years, for weeks, for months. I will lose my professional credibility. And so I really coach all my leaders that this composure is so important to step back. Okay, the cool head is a warm head, hot head is mental hijacking. The 24-hour rules allows you to come back online with your best thinking. It's just temporal. I'll think about it tomorrow, I'll sleep on it. We've all heard these terms, but to operationalize it is, I gotta do this intentionally for 24 hours. What do? I talk to my wife, Nancy, my confidant. I go, you know, I gotta get off the ledge. Help me process this out so I can get back to a place where I see the person in their strength, in their warmth, and I have warmth toward them. Because when I'm hot-headed and cold-hearted, they're going down and nothing good can come from that. I'm not going to make it better. I'm going to make it worse. So my confidant tells me, nope, you're not ready to talk to that person yet. Until I can express it matter-of-factly, I am not ready to go back to that individual. So this is such a key step. And I write out a magic sentence. I experience taking advantage of when you come into your shift 3 out of 5 days late because I have to do your work and mine. I need to have you, I need you to be on time moving forward. So I've expressed the impact on me. I've given you very specific data about what I need to have changed. And then lastly, I'm telling you the consequences on me and what I need. Until I can say that magic sentence to a confidant, I'm not ready to go back to you, because anyone can hear what I just said. Because if I say it with the right tone, matter-of-factly, with a cool heart and a warm heart, a cool head and a warm heart to that individual, they're going to accept it.
Yep.
If I do it with a how and I got an edge to my voice, nope, they're not. So you want to be the most effective as possible. So the people who score the highest on avoiders, I tell them in my seminars, I like you the best because you can do this better than anyone else. You guard your composure like it's your best leadership skill. So
Nice.
That's what I have to say about avoiding, which people say is awful. Okay, let's say I've gotten myself off the ledge. I have a warm heart and a cool head. Well, I've broken it off from that other person. So now I got to go back and eat crow and listen. Listen till the cows come home. I want them to get off their ledge. So once I've gotten off my ledge, I've broken it off. It's my responsibility to go back and face the person. When they talk and share their perspective, their emotions go down. They feel cool head and warm heart to me. Essential step to go back and only listen. So it's being reasonable, creating goodwill, keeping the peace, retreating, never taking the sucker's choice to say, well, yes, but you're an idiot. You did this. You can't go there. You have to only listen until they come back online with their cool heart and warm head. So it's incumbent on you also in this step to have warmed yourself up to them and cooled yourself in your head so that you can be that, you can do this. So you have to challenge your negative thoughts in the last 24 hours about, you know, why you think this person is no good in your life and etc. Okay, so since you've timed yourself out, you have to be the first one to come back. I call that the 24-hour rule. It goes from 1 hour to 24-hour rules. And the barometer is my heart warm toward this individual? Is my head cool? Because if it's not, they're going to pick it up in 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. You got to listen actively, paraphrase what they're saying, reflect their feelings so they come off the ledge. Bring the temperature down in the other person. Stephen Covey had the wonderful adage, first understand, then be understood. If you don't do the first understand first, you're never going to get there in a conflict. So do that. Listen till the cows come home. Reflect the feelings you hear. Don't get defensive. Only follow that procedure. Honor where they are.
Beverly shared something that I think is really important, and I want to get your take on it. Accommodating is good, but you have to remember boundaries.
Yes. Okay. Exactly. Thanks for that comment, Beverly. What I tell people is listening agreement? And they always tell me, no, Mark, listening's not agreement. I am just asking you to listen. And I am not agreeing with your perspective. I could see how you see it that way. So you have to be careful in your listening where you're not agreeing with them. I'm not asking you to do that, but listening is not agreement. It's just temperature reduction.
So the
bringing the fever down.
Yeah, the key word accommodation isn't necessarily a behavior initially, except I'm going to accommodate this conversation. I'm going to listen.
Yeah, it's not a
understand.
Exactly. It's not agreeing to everything they do. And again, this is temporal. It's given by the situation. It's the second step because you have to get them back online too. Yep. You're already back online because you've done 24-hour rule. They have not had the benefit of that. They're still stewing from the interaction yesterday. And that's your goal. Not to agree, but simply to listen and reflect what you hear to bring them back to their warm heart, their cool head, because they're not there. So it's temperable.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So now both temperatures are down. Then we can collaborate because my frontal cortex is back online and so is yours. We can brainstorm 10 different ideas about how we might do this differently with each other. We can learn from each other's perspective. It's the be understood side of it now. I want to be understood for where I was in this. It's not just a halfway thing. I understand you and you don't understand me. It's both and. They understand you, you understand them, and then we can problem solve because two heads are better than one. We can be wise old owls. We can decide to make this better and not worse. Yeah. So I love that. We're going to work, and I only like to use collaboration on high value items like strategic planning or, you know, us working together again for the next 6 months or a year. And you might share your own perceptions. Here are some automatic thoughts I had about you yesterday that were really wrong. And I challenge them because I don't see you that way now because I'm not emotionally hijacked. I really can understand, and I want you to understand me. And if you can help work with people to unpack their automatic thoughts, it really goes a long way. And then it's fun because you're generating several ways to solve an issue. And then the two of you pick the top two you're going to try for the next 2 weeks.
I'm going to agree with something Amy said a little while ago. She wrote, LOL, good EQ skills are helpful.
Yeah. But the good I'm teaching you the good EQ skills.
Okay.
We don't learn this in EQ skills. We don't learn this process. This process is key to our success because you follow a formula that's not wrong. And you all know it both intuitively and you kind of make sense, common sense wise.
Well, this piece too about the collaboration, please, sharing your perceptions. It's if you haven't developed the skill set of sharing your perception, that alone can be a challenge for other people to hear. Right. And I learned a long time ago, part of how I say that in this, when I get to this place in the conflict continuum, so to speak, is being able to say my perception is that when you slam the door in my face, that it was that you wanted to harm me. Is that accurate? Or my perception is that when you drove too fast, even though I told you it scared me, you didn't care about my needs. Is that accurate? So I've learned those skills. Is that what you're sharing here about owning your stuff and sharing your perception?
Yeah. And because you're opening that door, then a person can say, oh, wow, that wasn't my intention. Here's what I was doing in that time frame that had nothing to do with that. My automatic thoughts or my thinking was, she hates me and I got to get this car somewhere very quickly so I can get out of it and avoid as quickly as I possibly can. oh, okay, I see what your intention was, is to try to stop the interaction. So you sped up to get somewhere so you wouldn't have to be in front of me anymore. Yes, absolutely. So anyway, again, you have to have a participant that's reasonably emotionally intelligent, as has been stated before. But again, if you brought down the temperature, we can be more reasonable.
It may not, following this process may not end in kumbaya, but
No, not
right? But when
necessarily.
we take the initiative and follow this process, then we're managing emotions around us differently than just our automatic reaction. And I think that's half the battle. It's about us, as you first said. It's about our thoughts
Mhm.
initially. Mhm.
So the last item on here, which is believe there is a growth opportunity and we can both be successful. It's that mindset when you start in the beginning, is that there's an opportunity for us to be better. There's an opportunity for me to be better. I have 50% responsibility in whatever caused this problem. It's not all about you. As soon as I give up blaming you, and that I share in some sense the responsibility for it, I can look at myself. And that modeling helps the other person look at themselves. So when you, like Anissa suggested, when you're bringing up, how the experience was for you, and they're calm, they can hear that in a sense and say, wow, well, I wonder what I was going through and all of that. I want to take a look at that and maybe share that. And maybe they can't right then because, again, you've had 24 hours more to do this than they have, and they may come back to you the next day. I was really intrigued with what you said, and here's where I think I was coming from. Remember, you're coming back and they're in a novice role. They are not doing any of this. You're following a sequential step, and you've gone through some introspection yourself. They may haven't. They still be stewing. So you got to give a lot of latitude that they may not be aware, and they may come back to you the next day and say, that was really interesting conversation. Here's where I think I was with my automatic thoughts.
Mhm.
And then you're creating a place where people want to work through as growth opportunities to make things better around your relationship with that person.
Excellent.
So let's say that fails. Okay. We can't come to consensus agreement. We have to compromise. Well, let's make a deal. I only like to use compromise for transaction because you have equal power because you're sharing and giving, making concessions and giving things up to the other person. And sometimes there's time constraints. And this is the way a lot of work is done in the office, frankly. Oh, I'll go get the mail if you get this for me. Could you do that right now? So we divide and conquer. It's done all the time transactionally. It's not done in conflict management so much. And it's the next step if the first thing fails. So it's quid pro quo. It's appropriate for transaction. It's great for non-value laden issues. In our country, when we had this big emotionally high stakes debate about gays and lesbians in the military, it was don't ask, don't tell, because it was value laden. Nobody liked that. Don't ask, don't tell. No one liked, okay, I can't have my identity. Don't ask. Okay, just pretend it's not there. It doesn't work for anyone. But it was a compromise that came about that was difficult for people because they couldn't be who they really were. So that's an example of a value-laden issue where it doesn't work. But if it's transactional and it's about equity in the workplace, maybe you can come to some really good compromise. And you have to do fair trading negotiation because it's not about a win-win anymore. And you have to make that decision. Okay, we didn't work that way, so let's compromise. Half of what I want, half of what you want. It's how our Congress works or doesn't work. And it's worked really great in the past to bring values together and experiment with new things. So it's not a bad thing. It's just not the optimal choice. It's the second best after collaboration. Okay, the last one, competing, my way or the highway, quick action, unpopular decisions, vital issues, protection. Let me ask you a question. If you've been an HR professional and you've done your due diligence to go through these 4 in the proper order, and there's still no bending from the other side, guess what? This is the way it's going to be. I make the decision because we can't get you two to make the decision, or, you know, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what's going to work for me. We agree to disagree. Or if you're in a position of power, you have done your due diligence. You've gone very, very technically through 4 possible steps to resolve it, and you still have someone who's intractable. Well, it's time to use your authority in that situation. So it's the last choice and not the first. If competing is your highest value on the test, then you tend to use it as your first choice, and it's very off-putting to others. You have people that are yes people. They don't want to bring issues to you because they know you're going to take over. So this is the caution. I always use the shark at the very end, not at the beginning.
Mark, I am laughing because my husband, when we first got together, he once let it slip out of his mouth that the entire reason for communication, the entire reason to have a conversation was to win.
Yeah. And that mindset, think about that mindset, and he's changed, right? As a result
A lot.
of living
Absolutely.
with you,
Yeah, can you imagine?
realize that that is a non-starter.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I do this workshop and people are in their breakout group in the competing area, they laugh and say, I love to argue and debate. I want to use rank and I want to get my way. And I go, I pull a Dr. Phil and go, well, how's that working for you? Well, I don't have many people around me, but I get a whole lot of stuff done. I go, oh, okay. How is it? Pretty lonely then, huh?
Right.
Because, you know, it's not reciprocal. It's not equal. It's dictatorial.
It's not equitable. For sure.
So, okay. So the last thing, next slide. So it's when someone asks about a boundary. It's when a boundary needs to be set. You've done your best due diligence to go through all these really, really intentional steps. And you know what? It's time to set limits. If it's if it's not someone you're facilitating with, it's someone you're in mortal conflict or combat with, your one way to do my way, the highway, is to use the Gestalt prayer, which is, I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations. You're not in this world to live up to mine. You are you, I am me. And if by chance we find each other, it's beautiful. Yeah. So it's that agree to disagree. It's no point in, pressing, because you're not going to get anywhere. And you know what? When you think about going through all these 5 steps and getting to that point, are you comfortable that you did your best as an HR professional? Are you comfortable that you did your due diligence? Can you leave with a warm heart and a cool head and a feeling of competence? That's what I want you to leave with this process, that you feel competent. And, I've done the best I absolutely could, and that's it. So that's the whole deal. The last slide reminds you, avoiding, cool head, warm heart, get to that place in 24 hours, accommodating, listen, paraphrase, reflect, collaborate, 2 heads are better than 1, generate all kinds of cool hypotheses and different things you could do together and pick the top 1 or 2 and experiment with it, compromise, horse trade, and compete. Did all these things, did the best I possibly can, and we're gonna have to agree to disagree. We can't move forward on that for the time being. Things could change in a month, but for the time being, we can let it rest.
And I have heard this model before. I have spoken to you about this model before, but something about today, maybe it's the stress that I'm under or what have you, that is really clicking. And we've got some questions that I want to pose for you. Sheila asks, what's the best strategy if the person you are having conflict with doesn't have high IQ?
Doesn't have high IQ or EQ?
Yeah, high EQ. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Tread lightly, I would say. I would probably help them to see the steps we're going to take and talk about it, that we're going to go through some sequencing for success that I've learned. And then if they know you're following a process, people like to follow a process. Think about how popular project management is these days, and the training that comes with that, and the certifications. Think of this as project management for conflict. And that's a great way to present it to someone. We're going to go through these steps that are really, really effective. And that's how we're going to help one another get through it. You know, please bear with me, because they're really helpful and successful. And I'll tell you what they are. We're going to go through these steps and help them with that, rather than coming in as the expert, which already puts you in an authority position. And that's not where you want to come from. So be transparent about what you've learned, and there's an effective process out there, and we're going to separate your people issues from that. And, you know, bear with me, you're smart, and I think we can go through this together. And if you're not completely satisfied after we go through the 5 steps, then let me know. But you won't be able, someone who has low EQ generally only wants to compete. So you are, in some sense, beating your head against the wall if you're competing. So it goes to a whole set of other issues in HR, which are, have you hired well? Do you have the right person on your team? Do they express the core values of the organization? Or are they running rampage through your organization, stressing everybody else out?
Mm-hmm.
Then they're the wrong person, and we need to be good as HR professionals and help move the person along to maybe another environment that's more competitive for them, that doesn't, you know, stamp on the core values of your organization.
So really, I would call this the conflict resourcefulness, or a pathway for conflict resolution that still works within our style. Amy wrote something that I think is fair. You know, I think someone with low EQ might also avoid, but I guess if we put it as a conflict continuum, a conflict resolution process, then one size never fits all. There's never going to be a time where, if my go-to is always about the compromise, that is going to serve. Likewise, it's not always about the collaboration. If someone asks me to do something that compromises my integrity, I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to collaborate. And if I did, that also would indicate weakness or low EQ. Yeah,
because that's a place where competing is important to stand for your values and your principles, particularly if they're the best for the organization. So while I'm talking about you going through this with people, it doesn't compromise any of the things that are principles, core values, the mission and the vision of the organization. It doesn't violate any of that. It has to be in tune with it.
Very good. So Gary asks.
I was going to say one more thing. So probably why I have this stated as the cool head, warm heart is because the only person you can really manage is yourself. And if you go through these steps for yourself, then you're always going to come out with your cool head and warm heart. And I just want you to leave with that barometer. Where am I on this? Am I 103 degrees with my head? Am I 45 or 32 degrees with my heart with this individual? Where is my barometer? Because that's what you ultimately have control of. And that ultimately expresses your EQ to your organization. So it's like EQ for dummies. Warm heart, cool head.
For dummies, yeah.
Check it in with yourself constantly. Right now, we don't have warm hearts and cool heads. We're all suffering from that, and we're regressing because we slip into, I just got taken advantage of. That person's cheating. That's stealing. How come I don't get this? How come that person's getting that? You know, when am I going to get back to work? Where's my 401k? You know, it's just like, that's where we are. We're in scarcity paradigm, not abundance. And so that's not warm heart, cool head. That's, I'm in it for you, for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask Gary's question. So I think I skipped to the right slide. So you tell me. Gary says, where does getting other opinions or input show up in the process?
Absolutely in this thing. It's all about you, nothing about me. It's in accommodating and listening. You know, tell me what your perspective, so it's open-ended questions. What was your perspective on how we got crosswise with each other yesterday? What are your intentions? What, you know, I think I misread your intentions. What were your hopes that we achieved yesterday? So it's asking open-ended questions, not yes or no ones, that allows someone to talk and for you to listen. Oh, I can see what you're saying right now. I get that. I didn't realize that that was so important to you, etc. So you are encouraging that openness. You're encouraging that paraphrasing and reflecting. What I love in the crucial conversations is that the thing that messes up us most is our pool of information is not large enough. Accommodation, listening actively, makes that pool of information big and not just the size of a teeny little rock, a stone. It makes it into a boulder. It's like, oh, I could see so much more in listening to you. Of course you would see it that way, because my pool of information is not limited. It's huge. I've got a bigger context, and now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So that activity of enlarging the pool comes in the second stage.
Amy, that's really helpful. And then I want to ask this question that Amy wrote. She says, I'm familiar with TKI, Thomas Kilmann Inventory, and have not heard them talk about doing it in this order. Can you say more about how you came to this order?
Okay, I came to this order from personal circumstance. Great question. When my wife and I were young married, we went to a counselor because we were in power struggles, as most married couples do. All you have to do is figure out, you know, discuss money, children,
Politics,
sexuality, politics, or in-laws, and you're right there in that place of a power struggle. Just ask if you celebrate Christmas, just think about the first time with your partner and you wanted to celebrate Christmas in the way your family did, and they wanted to. Wow, tough issue, because it's about how you carry on the customs. And so it really highlights the conflict. All those four areas do. So anyway, we went to a therapist because we were in power struggle, which a lot of young couples are. And she goes, do you know the rules of fair fighting, our therapist? We go, no, what are they? Oh, well, first of all, you've got to time yourself out. And if you get over the top, so you don't say something you're going to regret and cause an escalation. Oh, okay. Well, how does that go? Well, it's a 24-hour rule, 1 to 24 hours, and you do this. So I thought, okay, wow, that matches up with the TKI's avoiding. What if I put that in there as the first step? Because it is the first step in fair fighting. And the second step in fair fighting is if you break it off, you got to come back and listen to your spouse. Accommodation.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's okay to break it off, but it can't be more than 24 hours. You can't leave that person hanging. You got to come back. So it was through personal experience that I said, they've got this in the wrong order. This is the order I would put it in. So it's a little bit of me and a little bit of my experience with a wonderful therapist that help us learn how to work through our personal conflicts together with these rules.
Wow. Wow. Very.
So a funny story about that, if I have a moment, is that she said, okay, well, you guys practice it next week, you know, tell me how you did if you get into a situation. So with men, you know, our kind of classic maneuver is to stonewall or read the paper or avoid. So we're good at that. We're good at leaving. We leave in a conflict. It's too tense. We move, we pull away. And it's known as stonewalling in Gottman's work on making marriages work. So we're good at that. We're good at leaving, but can't leave forever, just 24 hours. So Nancy and I were getting into it and fighting. And I started to leave and tried to do the avoidance thing, went into the bedroom, got cornered. And there was a screwdriver on the dresser. So I undid the screen, opened up the jalousie window on our first home, and took off for an hour to calm myself down and then come back and you know, we could talk and share. So when we brought this up to our therapist, she goes, "Oh my God, I love that story." She was laughing, falling out of the chair. "Can I use this as an example when I do workshops?" I said, sure. You know, we were young, in our 30s, and so be it. So I have personal experience with avoiding in a temporal way, not in a permanent way, which a lot of men do, unfortunately.
That's great, Mark. Well, I know we are coming up to the end. I did want to double back around with Gary's question, which bookends to his original question. He said, understood, but you're talking about a two-way discussion, and he's asking about bringing in other people's opinion. Within this conflict resolution, is there a point at which you bring in other people's opinions?
Yes. So if I'm a manager and I've given some feedback to an employee, I'll say, here's how I perceive you in our work environment. That you come in late, and when you come in late, it stresses other people out because they pick up your work. I may be wrong about that, but I want you to check it in with these 4 or 5 high performers on the team, which I have coached those high performers who want to be managers eventually. You sometimes may get someone coming to you asking about whether this feedback is true or not true. And because I see you as a high performer for potential promotion, someone may come to you out of the blue and say, "I just had a conversation with Mark about my performance, and he sees it this way. How do you see it?" And I know they're going to share the truth. Now, I have to be very careful with that. I do not share that, have them go to the most disgruntled employee who does not have the core values and is a jerk to get that feedback. I only do it with those specific people that I'm thinking of for promotion and who are, you know, great characters. So I know that they're going to give honest, true feedback to that individual. So that's where I bring others in the feedback phase. Okay, this has been a lot I've told you and shared with you about how I perceive you, but maybe I'm wrong. Go check it out with these 4 individuals on our team and let me know, you know, what you come back to me and let me know what you found out.
And is that in the compromise phase or the collaboration phase?
It may be when I have shared the magic sentence.
Yeah.
Eventually, which is, I usually share the magic sentence in collaboration when the temperature's down. And then they're like, "Gosh, that's hard to hear, Mark." Well, you know, I want you to check it out with these 4 other souls on our team. Be very judicious of who you choose and help those people understand that if they want to be managers, they're going to have to give honest feedback, and it helps your succession planning because you're seeding your high performers in EQ skills.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. I know we're at the end of our program together. If you would like to get a hold of Mark, please reach out to him, msfreemanassociates@gmail.com. I also want to share with you guys that we do have some pretty unique offerings that are name your own price, including we know a lot of folks are having to revamp their entire strategic structure and strategic plan, and we are supporting organizations with our name your own price programs, as well as we have put together some outplacement coaching and retained leader programs. Name your own price, meaning high touch meets high tech with our hybrid programs. We do want to be supportive. We do want to help. Reach out if we may be of assistance. Do let us know also, what talks are you interested in that we have not invited an expert yet, or would you like to hear more of? So thank you again, Mark. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, Anissa. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Really fun, as always. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Stay safe and healthy.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.